Legendary Polish-German revolutionary Rosa Luxemburg once said, "Freedom is always, and exclusively, freedom for the one who thinks differently." Going against the grain is not easy, but it's where true freedom lies. Above all else, Sigma males are known as the lone wolves of society. They are the rare few who manage to break away from the norms and expectations that most people remain forever confined to. They are free to walk their own path in life and to do as they please with little regard for the judgments of those around them. Most often, these are the men who make history. Non-conformity is a powerful thing indeed, and being a loner and thinking of yourself can ultimately lead you to change the world, even if you never intended to. Non-conformity is a single, unitary ideology that can be followed or adhered to. In fact, that's exactly what lies at the heart of non-conformity. Non-conformity is the refusal and the rejection of ideology and expectations. Non-conformism takes many different shapes and forms, but at its heart, it's all about independence. As any Sigma will know, for some people among us, simply sitting back and swallowing the pill we are fed by the individuals or society around us is not an option. There is a certain skepticism that's worth holding on to throughout life to ensure that we are not blindly following a path that's been carved out for us without any true sense. This skepticism can come in all shapes and sizes, be applied broadly or selectively, but nonetheless it's the way that we as people find flaws in our reasoning and are ultimately able to create change. Non-conformists are those who face up to this reality and are not afraid to dedicate their lives to it. Non-conformity can be both a way of thinking or a way of behaving. Non-conformist thinkers are those who see outside of the box and are able to innovate new approaches to questions that others have struggled with or ignored, yet never bothered to approach from afresh. Non-conformist actors are those who translate this way of thinking into their actions. And this could range from anything as small as wearing an unorthodox outfit to something as grand and world-changing as launching a revolution. No matter the scale of the non-conformity, there's no doubt that our world owes its progress to those who think and act this way. After all, without innovation, there is no change. Often when we think of non-conformists, we think of revolutionary leaders, ingenious artists, inventors, philosophers, and thought leaders. And this is because the non-conformists stand out from the crowd. They're not afraid to trust their gut and march to the beat of their own drum. Walking away from the pack, just like the Sigma male, is what leads them to be remembered by history. Although history sure does well to include the non-conformists, they are not always so easily welcomed by those around them. Often, non-conformists will find themselves having to contend with environments that they either feel they don't fit into or environments that flat out reject them. Sometimes these lone wolf conformist types can end up becoming social outcasts. Famous historical figures such as Soren Kierkegaard, Friedrich Nietzsche and Harvey Milk, or even fictional characters like Captain Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean, are notable examples of people who didn't fit into the established status quo and found themselves living on the fringes of society as a consequence. Non-conformists tend to get used to being by themselves, as rarely are those around them ready to embrace their unorthodox ways of thinking. They may struggle to be accepted by their peers, who cannot quite understand why or how the non-conformist thinks and acts the way they do. This becomes normal for the lone wolf non-conformist, and they are in fact able to find confidence in the controversy they often stir in their environments. There goes the adage, confidence is not, they will like me. Confidence is, I'll be fine if they don't. which applies perfectly to the nonconformist philosophy of life. The lone wolves don't live to please others, they simply live. By definition, nonconformists go against the grain. They question the status quo and they challenge authority. And naturally, this can see them judged by their peers who would rather follow the status quo. In more extreme cases, nonconformists can even be placing themselves in a state of grave danger with their beliefs or behaviors. Under authoritarian regimes, nonconformists are the most closely scrutinized members of society, and any sign of taking a step out of line can be enough to result in serious consequences. When you think about it, the fear and danger of nonconformists is entirely legitimate. Perhaps the most seminal philosopher, Socrates, and certainly one of the most famous in all of the history of Western philosophy, not only lived, but died for his refusal to conform. When his groundbreaking approach to philosophy, known as the Socratic method, was scorned by the people of ancient Athens for being too disruptive to the status quo, they offered him the choice to relent his beliefs. Rather than conform, Socrates was willing to be put to death in order to stand up for what he saw as the most important contribution he could offer to society. The novel and subsequent movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, is another classic example of how rebelling against authority can be a surefire recipe for trouble, even on a microcosmic level. Protagonist Randall Murphy is a far cry from the political freedom fighters we often associate with the term nonconformist. Nevertheless, when he stands up to the authority of his cruel psychiatric wardens, he finds himself increasingly persecuted to the point of no return. While many of us possess some degree of a rebel streak, it's the true nonconformists among us who are willing to suffer any and all consequences for doing as they deem right. Being a nonconformist not only requires skepticism or disregard for what others think and do, but it also requires a great deal of belief in one's own ideas. Without self-belief, there can be no true struggle against the status quo. The famous revolutionaries of history were only capable of creating the changes that they did thanks to their irrefutable sense of belief in what they were standing up for. Without true belief and trust in themselves, the nonconformist would be unable to bring into being new and better worlds. Thinking outside the box requires creativity. To do as no one else is, to do what no one else has ever done. The ingenuity of the nonconformist may see them at first feeling isolated from others, but more often than not, it can lead to them becoming a central figure for their peers. They become leaders in their spaces, philosophers, political revolutionaries, artists, inventors, from Galileo Galilei to Steve Jobs. Some of the greatest and most impactful leaders we look up to were only able to change the world as they did because they were not afraid to dare and do something new. For the nonconformists, and us around them, bravery pays off. Nonconformists play an invaluable role in society, as they prove to us where the limits of possibility lie. The fact that something is not usually done, or perhaps has never been done at all before, means nothing to the nonconformist, and to the Sigma male too. These lone wolf thinkers create their own horizons when it comes to the line between what is possible and what is not. They push boundaries and show us what we as individuals and as a society are truly capable of. The shape of history and progress is carved out by those unafraid to think outside of the box. Sigmas and all other nonconformists. Without them, we would not know change. And we have them to thank for the ongoing progress of society. In the coming weeks, we'll have more videos uncovering the philosophy behind Sigma males so make sure you're subscribed not to miss out on any future uploads.